Hola estudiantes, bienvenidos a nuestra clase. Hoy es lunes 11 de mayo 2020 y nuestra tarea para comenzar es, por favor, traduce los infinitivos en el cuadro. El desafío es cómo se dice to be y to know. So our starter for today is to translate the infinitives in the table into English, and the challenge is how do you say to be and to know in Spanish. If you pause the slide here and then press play when you're ready to go over the answers. Okay, so the first one, dar is to give, so give yourself a big tick if you got that one. Leer is to read, pensar is to think. Poder is to be able, abrir is to open, ir is to go. Partir is to leave, tomar is to take, querer is to want, jugar is to play, seguir is to follow, and perder is to lose. If you were doing the challenge, then to be, we know we've got two verbs to be. They are ser and estar. And the second one, to know, we've also got two words to know. That's conocer and saber. This week we are starting on the present tense, so we will actually find out and under what circumstances we will use ser and estar and conocer and saber. So that's good. Vale, la agenda, hoy vamos a conjugar infinitivos en el presente, como ya he dicho, memorizar, practicar con una ficha de ejercicios y trabajo en línea, y también hay una tarea extra. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to conjugate infinitives in the present tense. We're going to memorize the endings. We're going to do a worksheet and some online work. And if you're finished, the extension task is to watch the news in Spanish. So the first thing that we're going to do is have a look at the present tense endings. Last week I told you to download the verbs sheet from Teams. So everybody should have a copy of this. It's the one that's got 8 different verb tenses in different colours, and we're looking at the first one on the top left, which is present tense. So here we have got the verb endings for AR, ER and IR verbs. We have got the ticky box that we're going to tick at the end of this week when we have covered all of the present tense, and then we have got the steps that we would follow if we wanted to conjugate a verb in the present tense. So for example, say I wanted you to conjugate we study. The first step that you would follow is to choose the infinitive. How do you say to study in Spanish? It's estudiar. The second step is to take off the last 2 letters, so we would have estudi. And step 3 is to add the ending for who is doing the action. So we would have a look at our table or have a look on our brain for the ending. We, the ending is amos, so we would come up with estudiamos. So if you would like to pause the video here and take a note of this, you've obviously already got the present tense endings. Maybe you want to write them down again just so you've got a nice complete note. And maybe you also want to write down the steps if you're not too sure of them or just want to have a nice note, then feel free. Once you've done that, then we can go on to the next slide. So what I wanted to highlight to you was the link between the subject pronouns that we saw last week and the order that we always memorise things in. So I told you it was really important that you knew the subject pronouns, but also as equally important that you knew the order. So you know the order is I, you singular, he, she, and so on and so on. Because when we are memorising our present tense endings or any of our different tense endings, the order is exactly the same as the order that we memorise the subject pronouns, so it's really important. So hopefully from last week you have got that order already in your head. I also wanted to highlight that we don't need to use the subject pronouns with the verb in the present tense unless we need to clarify. So I've got an example of that. So in English you would say I eat, you eat, we eat, they eat, and we're using the subject pronouns because we can see that the verb in blue is in exactly the same form. So if we didn't have the subject pronouns, we would have no idea of who we were talking about. If we just take that and we directly translate it into Spanish, you've got como, comes, comemos, comen. And we can see that we don't have the subject pronouns. We've got nothing in pink on that line because if we have a look at the verb ending in bold, The endings are completely different depending on who we're talking about, so we know who we're talking about without having the subject pronoun there. It's not necessary. The one case that you would need to use a subject pronoun is if you needed to clarify. So here's an example in English, first of all. If you were saying, I eat lunch with Josh and Carrie, he eats pasta and she eats pizza. If you then translated that into Spanish, como el almuerzo con Josh y Carrie, él come pasta y ella come pizza, we can see that the form of the verb for he eats or she eats is the same, it's come, and so we need to have the el or the ella in there just to clarify who we're actually talking about. So unless you're clarifying, you don't need to have the subject pronoun in the sentence. So what we're going to do now before we move on further is una tarea para practicar conjugar los infinitivos. So can you just take your bit of paper or take your form of technology, whatever you're using, and can you just work through these three infinitives here that I've got for you. So hablar, to speak, comprender, to understand, and escribir, to write. Can you just conjugate all of those verbs for all of the people in the present tense, just following the steps I've got here. So if you just pause the slide and then we'll just go over the answers when you're ready. Okay, so the first one, you should have habló, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. For comprender, you should have comprendo, comprendes, comprende, comprendemos, comprendéis, and comprenden. So you can see from this that actually when you have somebody who's not very good at Spanish and they think it's hilarious to say no comprende, to say that they don't understand, it's actually really stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all because the ending E is actually what you use to talk about he or she. So it really makes no sense at all. Anyway, that was a side note. So the next one, escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, escribís, and escriben. So hopefully you've got those all right. If you have got any problems or you're confused about something, just ask me on the team or send me an email and we'll sort it out. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is really important, is memorization. At this point, we've got the present tense endings, we know how to work the present tense, but I need you to make sure that you have got the endings memorized. Our end goal is that when you were speaking in Spanish, you're able to pluck a verb that you want to say from your brain and then choose the right ending from your brain and then say it. And so to get that level of fluency, we need you to be really, really speedy with knowing your present tense endings. So however you want to memorise them, it's up to you, whatever works for you. I've got some suggestions here for you. So maybe you want to use the look, cover, write, check method, which worked very well in primary school, but also works well for this. You might want to do repeated writing or saying. This is the one that works best for me. So when I was at school, I would just write my endings out over and over again, or say to myself, for example, o, as, a, amos, ais, an, over and over again until you've got them. Maybe you've got someone at home who is willing to test you on them. If you don't, or maybe you would prefer to use Quizlet, so if you get yourself a free account, you can make flashcards with the verb ending on one side and the subject pronoun on the other. And maybe, if you're a particularly cheesy person like me, you might find it useful to listen to songs. So in the description of the video, this video, I will link you to some songs on YouTube which you might want to listen to help you remember your present tense verb endings. However you memorise them, I don't mind how, just take the time now, pause this slide and don't go on to the next one until you have got the present tense endings memorised for AR, ER and IR verbs. ¿Ok? Vale, estamos listos. Ahora tenemos una práctica, es una ficha de ejercicios y hay algo que tenemos que descargar. So now we're ready. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to prove that you know the present tense endings. You're going to download from the team in the week 2 folder a present tense practice sheet. Can you just complete the sheet, and then once you've done that, if you email it to me, I will check it. If you can complete it without looking at your notes, that would be even more awesome. Maybe if you do actually manage to do that, then tell me in the email, okay? Vale, y ahora tenemos más práctica y es trabajo en línea. So what we're going to do now is I want you to do some more practice of the present tense, but it's individual work, so you're responsible for your own work. I'm going to get you to use two websites that I linked you to in the course guide last week. The first one is Conjuguemos, which is a free website which we can use to practice our present tense verbs with different games. And the second website is Study Spanish, which is really useful. You have to pay to get access to everything, so I definitely don't want you to pay. I just want you to do the free activities on the present tense. So I'm going to link you to exactly what I want you to do in this video description. Once you have done those activities, if you've still got time in this period, I'm going to give you the link in the video description to watch a Spanish news bulletin just to get your ear tuned into Spanish. So that's it. That's our video for today. Lots of practice of the present tense, so we better go get started.